Come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today.
So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Well, welcome to the blog on the vlog on the blog, Mr. Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sure, though, I don't want to disappoint the Wookiee, but we're going to be doing far more barking than we are going to be tail wagging as we go through what we have to share today. It's been an amazing few days. We had, first of all, easily the most repulsive post ever by a president of the United States. Easter Sunday, we don't obviously celebrate Easter. We were in the midst of celebrating Chog Matzah. But when you're president of the United States, you probably should recognize when it's Easter Sunday. And he put out a post on Trump Social that had an F-bomb in the middle of it. And he ended it, all praise be to Allah, on Easter Sunday. All praise be to Allah, right, with an F-bomb in the middle of it, cursing and threatening to destroy a nation, perpetrate genocide on 60 billion people. One of the most extraordinary rants in the history of world leaders, and certainly the most uncivilized by a U.S. president.
Oh, for sure.
I thought it was beneath Satan. I thought Satan had more dignity than this. But that's where we start on this. And then he followed that up 2 days later with his, I'm going to destroy an entire civilization. In one night,
right,
I'm going to destroy an entire civilization. It's, if he follows through, it's confessing to not just a war crime, but a crime vastly exceeding anything Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong. This is actually at a level that goes beyond Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan with the Mongol hordes.
Or dropping the bomb in World War II. That was just 2 cities. I mean,
well,
he's talking.
It'd be vastly worse than dropping the bomb to end World War II, because the United States actually didn't start that war, and it was dropping a bomb on 2 cities. This would be essentially infinitely worse than that.
Yeah.
He was, and the only way, by the way, the United States could have obliterated an entire civilization in one night is to have dropped many nuclear bombs. There's no other way to accomplish that. So that's what we're dealing with here. He was threatening to obliterate a civilization in one night. The only way to accomplish that is with nuclear bombs. So that is where we are. I think a little history as to how we got into this mess is probably also important, because what we're going to do in this program, I'm going to share what Trump announced in terms of what he said, and I'm going to dissect it in ways that most people probably haven't considered. I'm going to also share with you exactly how the Iranians responded to this, because their response negates everything that Trump is claiming. Everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to know what the Iranian response was. And then I'm going to go through 15 reasons that I think Trump did this. And before I guess we do that, we're going to go through the 10-point plan that is the center of this story, which is the 10 points that were offered by Iran. We're going to go through each of those, and I'm going to share with you what they mean and what the consequence of them. We're going to boil it down to it's really a 3-point plan. And it's total surrender by the United States. And then we're going to go through, I'm going to share with you what I think are the 15 reasons that Trump made this decision. There's only, at least I guess I could think longer on it, come up with more than 15 motivations, but I will discuss 15. And the likelihood is that many of them are true, and it may be the fact that most of them are true. So there's 15 different reasons, because it's always important to understand, why do people do what they do?
Yeah, they're overlapping, they're interlacing. Absolutely. There's not just one thing that
Right.
it can boil down to. Yeah.
Right. So it's important to know what his motivations were, because that's going to define what happens going forward. So let's be exceedingly open and clear here. No one on the planet knows more about Islam and Islamic regimes than I do. I can say that emphatically. I'm not bragging. I've written the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion. I have the only American to have met with Al Qaeda immediately after 9/11 and lived to tell the tale. And I wrote thereafter Tea with Terrorists and then Prophet of Doom. And I did some 5,000 radio interviews, many television as well, under my own name, in the years after writing those books, and received over 1,000 death threats for having done so. I'm the only person.
A fatwa. Nobody survives that.
By Saudi Arabia. I'm the only person to reorder the Quran chronologically and to set it into the context of Muhammad's life using the 3 oldest collections of hadith, which would be Ishaq's Sirah, Tabari's History, and Bukhari's Topical collection of hadith. They are collectively, they are Islam. There is nothing more to Islam than those 4 sources, literally nothing. And the hadith are every bit as viable as are the Quran surahs, because they were spoken by the same people and retained by the same people at the same place in the same way.
Right.
Islam does not exist without the hadith. So they are inseparable. And by doing this, I put the entire story of the Quran into the context of Muhammad's life and proved many things that had seldom been considered. For example, the Quran exists today because rabbis sold Muhammad Talmud readings, which he credited to Allah and twisted to suit his interests. And without those Talmud readings, the Quran would not exist today. And it is the story of genocide of Jews in Arabia. It's the story of a con and a criminal enterprise. It's quite the read, and I would strongly encourage everyone who is listening to this program to go to yadaya.com. I go to the book section. The last section of books is Goddamn Religion. The 5 volumes are 825 pages apiece. 4,200 pages of analysis, where the only sources I cite are the oldest Islamic sources. And so the case I make against Islam is irrefutable. The only way you could challenge the case I make against Islam is to say that the Islamic scriptures are not credible.
Right.
Not only do I have my own translation of the Quran, because the Quran was actually written in Hebrew. Arabic is simply a bastardized version of Hebrew. I have 4 others that I run through the entire text, and all of it, the entire Quran is presented chronologically from first to last surah that was revealed. And they're all analyzed and scrutinized based upon evidence, reason, and the Islamic hadith. And so no one would have a reason to be more opposed to the Iranian government, the Islamic government, than I. And by the same token, I have devoted my life, and most of us in the Covenant family have, to protecting and supporting Israel. So we are very biased in this regard. Yahweh has made it emphatically clear that Israel is his country, and that Yehudim, corrupted Jews, are his chosen people. And we serve Yahweh. And because we serve Yahweh, we're here to support Israel. That doesn't mean we support the Israeli government, and that doesn't mean we support Judaism. We are exceedingly hostile to and opposed to Judaism and the government of Israel. I think Netanyahu is a tremendous liability to that country, and I've been saying so for a long time. And that the Haredi, this ultra-Orthodox cult of Judaism that represents the vast proponents of Jews and that are religious in Israel, is nothing but parasites. They're
Parasites.
and hated by God. And that Israel is a country filled with Marxists as well, who are the offset to the Haredi, and it's a house divided without a constitution. Israel's in serious trouble. Now, biases, no. I also want to clearly state that we begged Israel on, we do a blog 2 or 3 times a day, 5 days a week, and have done so now for almost a year and a half. And we begged Israel not to do this thing. Begged Israel, do not.
Both times, yeah.
Not. Yeah, do not. Both times. Both when they attacked Iran the first time, and now when they came back to attack Iran the second time. Do not do this thing. There is no way out this time. You do this thing and you will have committed suicide in Israel. You can't win a war against Iran. But we very clearly told Israel. First of all, in the war between interceptor and missile, the missile always wins, even when the interceptor hits its target. Always. There's too big a difference between the cost of the two, the numbers that have to be deployed against the one, and the lead time to manufacturing and replenishing the interceptors. You're going to lose that war always. And size matters when you're dealing with a missile and drone barrage, because you can't take out Iran at its size, the size of Western Europe, with an infinite supply of missiles and drones.
Right.
You couldn't even do it with fewer probably than the entirety of Israel's nuclear arsenal. And even then, I don't think you could take it out. But Israel's tiny. And Iran can absolutely destroy it with its missiles and with its drones. Although that's not how Iran is ultimately going to destroy Israel. And we're going to get to that because the path has now been opened in this truce for that to occur. So we begged Israel not to do this. We knew it was suicide worldwide. After Israel overreacted to October 7th of 23, I wrote a 100-page letter to Israel and said, I know what you're going to do, and I'm going to tell you how it's all going to work out, and you're going to destroy the country based upon your response to October 7th.
Yeah, don't
literally
take the bait.
destroy it. And those who have reread that letter now 2.5 years after the fact, look at it and say, I predicted everything accurate. I told Israel exactly what they were going to do and why everything they were going to do was going to blow up in their face and fail. At the same time, I told Israel, if you do these 5 things, you'll prevail. And I said, you're not going to do any of them. But you need to know that they're there nonetheless. So we knew that Israel was isolated and alone. And so isolated and alone that because of the over-response to Gaza, literally destroying Gaza, that Israel has turned the entire world against it. The anti-Semitism today worldwide is far more rampant than it has ever been, including the lead up to the last World War, which led to the Holocaust. And that having turned the world against it, Israel doesn't have a port in this storm. The Marxists are united in hatred of Israel. The MAGAs are now becoming united in a hatred of Israel. It's a chorus now, blame the Jews. The Jews are even being blamed, Israel's being blamed for Trump's miscalculation in this war. Now, mind you, it had nothing to do with Israel, but that's not what the world's going to perceive.
Iran. Iran is
Yeah.
blaming Israel more than anything else. They lead in their response with Zionism.
Yes.
It's like, oh,
Yes, it's pervasive, and that is part of the strategy is blame Israel, then don't take the blame against Trump. So Israel has now put itself in a position where it must be denied by its only supporter. Although Israel had become a vassal of Donald J. Trump, which is a terrible thing to do because he is Satan in the flesh. It's also important to say that back now 18 months ago, I identified Donald Trump as the corporeal manifestation of Satan. To use Yahweh's term, he is the Rahab is the name that Yahweh came up with, is Rahab. And we've done a series of shows of explaining why Trump is the only one who has ever qualified for that title. And the prophets are very clear about this. And we've done many, many shows proving that Donald Trump is the person that Christians would identify as the Antichrist. But he's Satan incarnate, which is what leads to the kind of chaos that comes out of his mouth, and the deceit and the death and the carnage, the destruction of the world. So these are all things that need to be known as we proceed to go through where we are. So with that said, that kind of an introduction, I'd like to begin by reading Trump's post. This is actually, that's the list of 10 points. I'm going to read Trump's actual post.
okay.
This is what he posted last night. Based on conversations with Prime Minister Shahbaz and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan. Okay, now do you know why he included both names? Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan? Okay.
I mean, other than it was the Pakistanis, I don't know why those two individuals are
Okay. Pakistan is the pretense of a democracy and a civilian government. Pakistan has long been run by the military. And so the important name on that list is Field Marshal Asim Munir.
Gotcha.
He is the supreme leader of Pakistan, and a prime minister survives and stays out of jail so long as they are nothing but a figurehead, a puppet for the military. So that's why he had to mention the field marshal. It is a military dictatorship, and Pakistan has been a military dictatorship for a very long time. The second thing that's important there, based on conversations with these two Pakistanis, wherein they requested. So what he's doing here is he's saying, I was a liar when I said that we were having very good conversations with Iran, and Iran was begging us for a ceasefire. That's what he's saying here. It's right there in writing. No, you are not talking to Iran. Iran will not talk to you. There was no conversations between the United States and Iran. You went to your Pakistani buddies who, fund your cryptocurrency project, and that's who you were talking with. And just 3 days prior to this, the Pakistanis announced that 15-point plan that Trump had sent for them to deliver was soundly rejected. Even the Pakistani says, oh, no, this thing is dead. There's no response other than hell no to Trump's 15-point plan. Throw it away. Has no value whatsoever. Okay, so that's where we were. So he is now talking with the Pakistanis. And his 15-point plan, which called for Iran's surrender, has been rejected. And he knows it's been rejected. So he says, wherein they requested. So it wasn't the Iranians begging for a ceasefire. No, it was the Pakistanis. Now, why are the Pakistanis wanting a ceasefire? Why were they requesting one? Do you know?
I don't think they take Iranian oil, so it has nothing to do with the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay.
I don't.
The Pakistanis, well, that's the largest Shia population outside of Iran. They are a majority Sunni nation, and they have signed a long-term defense agreement with Saudi Arabia. What most people do not know is that the Pakistani nuclear program was funded almost in its entirety by Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
The scientists were Pakistani because the Pakistanis are Indians, and just like the Persians, the Indians are much brighter than Arab Muslims. It's just a fact of reality. I'm not trying to say anything other than, the average IQ of an Arab Muslim is 70 and below. And the average IQ of a Persian Muslim or an Indian Muslim is much higher, in the 90s. So the Pakistanis had the scientists that developed the bomb, but it's a very expensive project. It was funded by the Saudi Arabians. And the purpose of the Saudi funding was that some of the bombs that they made were shipped to Saudi Arabia, so that Saudi Arabia has a nuclear deterrent without announcing it.
Okay.
And Pakistan is a bust economically. It's a country that's been in default and bankrupt for a long time. Saudi Arabia sits on immeasurable amounts of black ooze that is extracted with U.S. technology for 25 cents a barrel and sold now for $115 a barrel. Pretty good margin in that.
Nice.
And so, pretty good margin in that, just like printing money, except you don't have to pay it, no debt. So the Pakistanis are in a position where they have a very big nuclear deterrent on behalf of Saudi Arabia and provide a backstop to the U.S., which has failed in terms of deterrent, and because they need Saudi money to keep afloat. So their loyalties are to Saudi Arabia.
Gotcha.
All right. So they were the go-between, and they're the ones who want this resolved, because if Saudi Arabia goes kaput, their desalinization plants are taken out, their electrical generation plants are taken out, their oil extraction fields are destroyed, and there's no transit through the Gulf of Hormuz by Saudi Arabia. Guess what doesn't happen in Pakistan? They don't get the money anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And without the money, they're in trouble. They're gone. So that's their motivation. So it was the Field Marshal Hashim Munir of Pakistan, wherein they requested, not the Iranians, that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran. Now, do you actually think there was a destructive force that was in the air and was already en route to Iran that was called off at the point
0 hour?
This was
No. We go or no go those things, and they are go or no go.
Yeah, that's right. So this was a lie. You don't bring back the cruise missiles, and we didn't take B-52s off from Diego Garcia and bring them back and land them full of bombs. That did not happen. We didn't take the super expensive B-2s and fill them with expensive munitions and then have them land with those munitions. No. That did not happen. So he's lying. They had not been sent tonight to Iran. And he says, and the subject. So he says, so that I hold off destructive force being sent to Iran. And subject. Oops, we lost our, there we are. Okay. And subject to. When you write subject to in a business document, and this man's supposed to be a businessman, so he would understand subject to. What does that mean? Subject to.
It's their fault that
No.
that they are the ones being held accountable for it.
Nope.
Okay.
What subject to means in a document like this is that the next thing I'm going to say has not been agreed to,
Okay, I got you.
and that what follows is only viable subject to what I'm going to say next being agreed to, but it has not been agreed to. Okay, that's what it means when you write subject to in a business document. It's important for you to know that, because he may be demonic, not maybe, he is demonic, and he may be a confabulator, but he's written a few business documents and he knows the term subject to, what it means and why he used it there. There's no other reason he would use it other than to point out what I've just pointed out, which means what follows has not been agreed to, but for the rest of this to play out this way, it needs to be. He wants it to be. Subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to, and then here's the Trump March of the Capitals, complete, immediate, and safe opening. All of those, with the exception of the conjunction and, were in all caps. Complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Guess what? The Strait of Hormuz is not going to be completely opened. Opened? Yeah, it's open now. It's 3% of the original commerce that went through it is going through it now. Yeah. Complete? No. Is it ever going to be completely opened again? No. Immediate? Yeah, no, that's not going to even happen either, because the Iranians have been very clear as to how they're going to open it up, and it's as a toll booth escorted by Iranian naval vessels that Trump says don't exist.
Right.
And using transponder codes and identifications that say, this is where I bought this crude. This is the currency I paid for this crude in. This is how many gallons I have on board. This is the owner of the ship. This is the complete list of names of everyone who is captain, officer, and crew on this ship, and what my destination is for this crude. You have to register with the Iranians and convey all of that information, and then pay a fee of the equivalent of $1 per barrel in Chinese yuan, and you will be escorted. Now, to put in that plan, that doesn't happen immediately. Can it happen? Yes. Will it happen immediately? No. Safe opening. What? You were the one who closed it, Donald. So what is the safe opening?
We all got to go back in mines.
Remove all the mines. Oh, that ought to be easy. They're certainly not going to remove the fast boats. They're not going to remove the missiles that are on the side. So safe is so long as they don't pull the trigger on any of those things. Okay, the Strait of Hormuz. So it means that they have not agreed to the complete, immediate, and safe opening, because that's why he wrote it subject to. Then he says, I agree. So subject to them agreeing to that point, then I agree to suspend, not stop, not refrain from, not obliterate the civilization, to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. Then he wrote, this will be a double-sided, then scream again in all caps, ceasefire. So at this point, he didn't have any agreement with Iran.
Right.
So how could he be claiming it's a dual-sided ceasefire? And do you know that if it's 2 weeks, even though the Secretary of War, Pete, I never met a Jack Daniels I didn't like, says we're going to be hanging around? No. Nobody's hanging around for 2 weeks. The U.S. troops, the 20,000 boots on the ground that the military brass said, no, you're not coming in with those boys. You're not going to invade, Trump. We're not going to commit suicide. And the ships that have been deployed too long, well, already the Gerald Ford is back there getting his potties cleaned, the laundry reworked. No, they're not staying on site. You might have a boat or two, but yeah, U.S. is retreating. They're going to withdraw. And after 2 weeks, with the lack of support for this war, the U.S. is not coming back.
Right.
So 2 weeks, he might as well have said 2 years. If he said 48 hours, that wouldn't mean anything to him. He'd change it the next day anyway. But nonetheless, short period of time, yes. 2 weeks, no, it's done. Now, he says the reason for doing so. Now, when you're dealing with a confabulator and you see the reason for doing so, your first response must be, what lie is going to come next?
Right.
Okay, that's what that means. Is I'm about to lie to you. Let me tell you the lie that's going to come next. So the reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives. So that means the military objective must have been the close of the Strait of Hormuz. The military objective must have been the complete destruction of U.S. bases in the Gulf Arab states. The military objective must have been such that the United States was out of options and had to capitulate to Iran. That must have been your military objective, because I don't know what objective you actually met. Your objection was to keep Iran from having nuclear fuel. Well, you blew that one, because that whole farce of we're going to retrieve the pilot. Boy, we got him. How heroic are we? Never leave a man behind. There was no down pilot. No, the down pilot, they got him the first day. But the second pilot, that all hogwash. That mission was designed strictly to capture Iran's 1,000 pounds of uranium that had been enriched to between 60 and 90%. And it failed. It was very poorly coordinated. It failed miserably. And that's why you see that huge swash of desert with nothing but the carcasses of blown up and destroyed aircraft. It failed. We lost. So no, we didn't meet any objective. There's none.
Dousing Tehran in oil and raining oil. I mean,
oh yeah, I mean, we had to lift sanctions on Iran's shipment of oil to keep oil from going to $200 a gallon. No, there wasn't a single objective that was met. You say, oh, we took out Iran's Air Force. I mean, what do they have? They had the Top Gun type gear.
The Tomcats, F-14s.
The Tomcat that that it required 70, 80 hours of maintenance for every flight hour. Oh, come on. And they didn't have an Air Force. And they didn't have an Air Force because they're ready to fight the next war, which is drones and missiles.
Yep.
You say you took out their Navy. Well, you took out a showboat that was down celebrating with the Indians over an Indian holiday and was doing nobody any harm, and you sunk it with a torpedo. What are you talking about? The Iranian naval resistance is in the fast boats that are in the caves, and you didn't take out any of them. That's what keeps the Strait of Hormuz restrictive. So no, they didn't make. So he lied. You did not meet. You did not exceed any military objective. You lost the war militarily. And we are now this is amazing what he says here. And we are very far along with a definitive agreement. We are very far along with a definitive agreement. So, first of all, it is a lie, but it's quite a confession. What this means is that the Iranians completely rejected Trump's plan, wouldn't even talk to him about it. They presented their 10-point plan, and Trump is saying then we're very far along because we're accepting their plan.
Yeah.
And their plan is surrender for the United States. So we are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran. Yeah, we've had long-term peace with Japan ever since they surrendered, right?
Right.
Russia's
right.
has had long-term peace with Germany since they surrendered. And he says, and all caps, peace in the Middle East.
Yes.
Now, to have peace in the Middle East, what would you have to do? No, there's one way to achieve peace in the Middle East. There's always been one way.
Yeah, remove Israel. Yeah.
Sacrifice
Yes.
Israel. You sacrifice
take
Israel.
all-
Yeah, peace in the Middle East.
Yes.
That is the answer to that question. So when somebody who is in a position of power, like Trump, writes that the result will be peace in the Middle East, then Israel is going to be chopped into pieces. That is what that means. There is no other way to achieve it.
Right.
And that's what the prophets have said is going to be the result of all of this at this time. Then he goes on. He says, we received a 10-point proposal from Iran. Now, the 10-point proposal from Iran has been around for almost a month now, delivered formally earlier this month, but it's been around for a while. It has two variations, and I'll speak of what the variations are. Same points, but slightly different nomenclature regarding how they're managing these things. And we're going to hear about that in the letter that I'll read from the Iranians in a moment. But the fact is that the 10-point proposal from Iran. Now, the 10-point proposal for Iran, he is calling it the workable basis on which to negotiate. Then he even says almost all of the various points, there's only 10 on this agreement, and there's only 3 that matter, of past contention have been agreed to by the United States and Iran. Now, I'm going to share with you in a moment that 10-point plan. And he is saying that that's the plan that almost every point has been agreed to. On that plan, everything is for Iran. There is no benefit. There's not a single statement, not one word on that plan that is of benefit to the United States, to the Arab Muslim fiefdoms, or to Israel. Not a word of it. It is total capitulation. But he says that we've agreed to it. But a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized. The 10-point Iranian plan to be finalized and consummated. What's the difference between finalized and consummated other than being wordy? On behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East. Did you know that the countries of the Middle East elected Donald Trump to be supreme potentate? I was not aware of that. I think we may have lost our there he is. But yeah, he says, and he's not just speaking as president of the United States, he is speaking for, and I didn't know that, that the United States shared presidents, but evidently the United States, he thinks that he's president of the Middle East and the United States, and he'll speak for both. So he's presenting himself as the official representative, the de facto president representing the countries of the Middle East. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I say goes. What I say goes.
So what I say goes. I must. It's certainly news to the emirs in Qatar, UAE, the sheikhs in Kuwait, and the crown prince in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure, but he's claiming that he speaks for them, and that the capitulation to Iran is not only in their interests, but that they've acquiesced to him to surrender to Iran. It's quite a statement. It is an honor, capitalized, to have this long-term problem close to resolution. So we're gonna go through the Iranian response and also the 10-point plan, so we can see what problems are being resolved here.
He's just setting it up for number 9. It's the 9th war I have brought peace to.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Thank you for
Wait,
your
didn't you
attention in
start
this
this one?
matter.
Right.
Yeah, President Donald J. Trump, all in caps again. All right. So I think that we should actually go to the Iranian response before we consider this 10-point plan. Okay. So there's only been one official response from Iran. This, of course, the Iran that Trump says, we had regime change, and this is a far more reasonable group of leaders in Iran. They're not as fanatic. This is the more accommodating, smarter leaders of Iran. This is the lone response and the official response from Iran. So early today, this is current. Early today, Wednesday, Iran's Supreme National Security Council statement. So let's say that they wrote that incorrectly, but Iran's Supreme National Security Council issued a statement on the ceasefire. Because, Trump's so crazy, you can always assume that he just made it up in his own head and that he had a ceasefire with himself, while sitting on the golden throne. But
it did not look like a ceasefire last night. I can just say that. I mean, the amount of missiles that were going into Israel last night from Iran, from Hezbollah getting it. Yes, it did not look like a ceasefire.
Yes. Israel continued to fight because Israel's claiming that the ceasefire doesn't apply to what it's doing in Lebanon, even though that is specifically part of the 10-point plan. And when Israel continued to bomb Lebanon, even in Beirut, the Iranians said, oh, okay, well, here you go. Take this. Tit for tat. That's what the Iranians do. And so they launched cluster munitions all over Israel last night. So maybe they've got a little hitch in the giddy up here. So here's the full text. I think it's important that Americans and Europeans, Asians, people the world over, hear the Iranian perspective on this. And while as I say, I'm no fan of Islam, I'm an opponent of Islam. This is tough medicine, and America needs to know it because Trump is a serial liar. All right, it reads, the enemy in its cowardly, illegal, and criminal war against the Iranian nation. They call it cowardly because it's no mano a mano. They're dropping bombs from on high and sending in missiles as opposed to actually fighting like men. So that's why they call it cowardly. And they also call it cowardly because we sucker punched Iran twice, engaged them in discussions. The discussions were going reasonably well. And then we bombed them in the midst of those discussions. Illegal? Yes, it is illegal. This is clearly an illegal war. And criminal war, a little wordy there, but against the Iranian nation has suffered an undeniable, historical, and crushing defeat. So they come out with their first statement. We won, you lost. These are surrender terms for the United States, saying you suffered a crushing defeat. By the grace and the pure and holy blood of the martyred leader of the Islamic Revolution, His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Imam Khomeini. Peace be upon him.
We can't read that with a straight face, sorry.
Can't do that. The prudent measures of the supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution and Commander-in-Chief, His Eminence, Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Khomeini. May Allah protect him. Now, I do want to say a word for Sayyid. Sayyid isn't a complete scumbag. He actually isn't a complete scumbag. He is. He was born into the most entitled family in Iran. Over these last 47 years thereabouts. And as a man who, like Barron Trump, Eric Trump, Donald Trump, had all manner of privilege. The American Trumps all opted out of the military, didn't they? To a person. Bone spurs with Donald, and everyone else opted out of the military.
Right.
Sayed did not. You know that? He did not. He joined the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. He fought in the most dangerous, deadly conflict in defense of Iran. That was when the United States was providing chemical weapons and biological weapons and all form of tanks and the like to Saddam Hussein, and patting little Saddam on the behind and say, "You go kill yourself some Iranians because they're not playing nice with us." Well, Sayed Mojtaba Khamenei was a frontline fighter. He signed up, no privileges. And no, I'm no fan of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And bad institution, bad people. But if you're born into privilege and you still go on the front lines to fight for your country, it puts you in a different class than the Trumps.
Yeah, then the Trumps is sure, but also he's a true believer. I mean, Muslims, jihad, it is a war against all mankind. Any good Muslim wants to die for Allah. So, I mean, there is that side of it, that he wants to put himself in that position. You know, I mean, he could, as a not a good Muslim, he could have stayed back and hung out on daddy's dime for sure.
Yeah. Now there's more to it than that, of course, because the IRGC is not an agency of the Iranian government. It is not the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. It's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And so the IRGC does not report through the political arm or even the normal military. It didn't even report through military channels. So it does not have a military hierarchy, and it does not have a political hierarchy. They are the personal army of the Ayatollahs. And so what better way to get your personal army to support you than to go on the front lines and fight shoulder to shoulder with them, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And that's what he did. Now, to compare them, you'd have to, ICE would be the personal army of Donald Trump here, but Donald Trump doesn't fight with them. Hitler had the brown shirts, was his personal army. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the personal army of the Ayatollah. So, important to recognize that. And the struggle and bravery of the warriors of Islam, and they didn't say warriors, this is a translation, and the translators get a lot of things wrong. It would be the Mujahideen. You know, there's something that's interesting about Mujahideen. Remember during the period when everybody was saying that jihad is a spiritual struggle and not a fighting to the death on behalf of Allah line in that regard, because every time the Quran mentions jihad, it's fighting with weaponry to kill non-Muslims and peaceful Muslims as well. Mujahideen is a compound of two words. One is to ponder the implications of the mujah, and hadid. It's jihad is right in the middle of the term. It means it's an Islamic militant, an Islamic jihadist comprised the mujahideen, and that's what the word that was translated warriors there would have been mujahideen, which tells you that jihad is a militia. It's militant of Islam on all fronts, especially the historical, lasting, and heroic presence of you, the dear nation. Sounds like Hitler here, doesn't he? On the scene since the first days of the war, Iran has achieved a massive victory and forced criminal America to accept its 10-point plan.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds about right.
What we just read from Trump sounds just about right.
It's about right. It's so you actually have truth if you know how to read and think. You've got, and you're not obsessed by politics. You're not a MAGA, you're not a Marxist, and you're not a Twistian or nor a Muslim, and your mind is open, you can read between the lines, then that's what they're actually agreeing, that this was surrender to force the criminal America to accept its 10-point plan. In this plan, America is fundamentally committed to guaranteeing non-aggression, the continuation of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. So much for open and free, huh?
Oh, yeah.
The acceptance of enrichment. So much for the destroying of their nuclear capability. Obliterating it the second time. The lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions. It just goes with the end of hostilities. The termination of all resolutions of the Security Council and the Board of Governors. This would be of the International Atomic Energy Commission, which they will no longer participate in going forward. Too many plants from Israel to their liking. The payment of Iran's damages.
That's a Marshall Plan. Yeah, that's a Marshall Plan without the win.
That means America, you broke it, you own it.
You bought it. Mm-hmm.
Well, you bought it, baby. Right. I don't know how many hundreds of billions of dollars you did in Iran, maybe trillions. But just stack it up to the debt, baby. Yeah, you broke it, you own it. Full war reparations.
And we don't even get to send in our workers and our Halliburtons to fix it up.
Nope.
We're just paying them to do it. Yeah. So.
That is correct. Now, the next one here. The withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from the region. We have bases I think we have like 8 bases just in Kuwait. 10 bases in Saudi Arabia. The Fifth Fleet hangs out in Bahrain. We have a huge air complex and base in Qatar. The demand is that the U.S. leaves the Middle East.
Yeah, no more CENTCOM.
No more. It's all gone. The cessation of war on all fronts, including against the heroic Islamic resistance in Lebanon. What part of that did the Israelis not see last night? We congratulate all the people of Iran on this victory and emphasize that until the details of this victory are finalized, there remains the need of steadfastness and prudence of officials and the maintenance of unity and solidarity among the Iranian people. Islamic Iran, along with the brave Mujahideen, see the jihad right in the middle of that? The EN is plural, but it's jihad right in the middle of the word. Pretty hard to make it's a peaceful struggle when the word Mujahideen appears all throughout the Quran, means a fighter, a militant. Of the resistance in Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, and occupied Palestine. Now, of course, we know there is no Palestine, but they're talking about Gaza and what they would refer to as the West Bank. They're talking about their foe Palestinians, but they're actual Muslims in those areas. That is their axis of resistance. Hezbollah, the Shiite militias, the Houthis, and Hamas between Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, and Gaza in the West Bank, has dealt blows to the enemy over the past 40 days that the global historical memory will never forget. Iran, by the way, it's interesting that as bad as Iran has been, sympathy is probably 10-1 in favor of Iran in this conflict over the United States and Israel worldwide. Yes. Man, nobody on the planet dislikes Islam more than I do, and I hold an American passport. I'm an expat, but I hold an American passport because they're so damn difficult to get rid of and so costly to get a different country. And I don't think I'm going to be needing it very much longer anyway.
Right. But where you got to go?
Yeah, where am I? I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going, and it doesn't require a passport. So I've got a passport, all right. It's called Yahweh. Yeah, deal with him if you don't like this. I'm moving through, but it's still you wake up and when the Iranians strike a blow, unless it's against Israel, and even against Israel, saying you need to learn this lesson. You were stupid. Stop being stupid. and you won't be bombed. But the Iranian and the axis of resistance, as it represents of the honor of humanity against the most savage enemies of mankind, have given them an unforgettable lesson after a historical battle. I thought it'd be historic, but I guess maybe that is the adjective form. They have so crushed their forces, facilities, infrastructure, and their political, economic, technological, and military assets that the enemy is now plunged into collapse and desperation. Oh, that part's true. Seeing no path before it other than to surrender to the will of the great nation of Iran and the honorable axis of resistance. That's also true.
I gotta like that rhetoric, the axis of resistance. Since George Bush goes the axis of evil, Iran, right? I mean, and for them to flip it back around now to the whole axis of resistance.
You know, I've because I've written now 7-8 books on Islam, and you come to realize that the Quran is the dumbest book ever written.
Yes,
and that Muhammad was dumb as a stone, and Allah is dumber than Muhammad. You don't come out of it with a high regard for Arab intellect, but now I can see why. You know, during the years that I was promoting Prophet of Doom, and we kept track of it with the website and the like, one of the things we noticed is the highest per capita readership of Prophet of Doom, that comprehensive excoriation of the Islamic religion, of the ungod and the non-prophet, was in Iran. And we saw, not only did I get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails from Iranian ex-Muslims saying, thank you, you answered my questions. I always wondered what was so wrong with this religion, and you've explained it. Thank you for freeing me from it. And we saw the percentage of Iranians that were Shiite Muslims drop from in the 90 percentile down to about 35 to 40 percentile over that time. And Prophet of Doom played a significant role in awakening the younger generation to the evils of Islam. That all said, when America started bombing them, they coalesced around their civilization. They're Persians. And as Persians, they're vastly brighter than your average Arab Muslim. When you put anybody in Iran or the average Iranian up against the average Arab on the other side of the Persian Gulf, it's not a fair fight. It's like Israel going, when Israel became a country and fought those first 3 wars, they were outnumbered 100 to 1, and they trounced the enemy.
Yeah.
Now,
with older technology. Yeah.
Yes. Now the difference has changed because Alaska flood, they trounced Israel, and Israel was played into doing exactly what they wanted. So the pendulum has swung. On the first day, when the criminal enemies of Iran began this oppressive war, they imagined that they could succeed in complete military dominance over Iran in a short time and force Iran to surrender by creating political and social instability. They were sold a bag of doo-doo, that there would be a regime change. And when that was being sold as the justification for this war, on this program, we attacked that notion. And what I said is that I've studied regime change operations. The United States has perpetrated 100 of them since the last World War, and they're 0 for 100. They haven't had a single successful regime change operation. They're always bad situations go to worse. Look at what happened in Iraq. Look what happened in Afghanistan. Look what happened in Libya. Look what happened in Syria. Every time we do regime change, it becomes worse. And this regime change in Iran was destined to become worse too, because the younger members of the military are far more ruthless than were the older graybeards. The second thing is that I've studied even regime change prior to that time, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, the Nazis in Germany, the communists under Mao in China. And what you find is that 4 to 5% of a population can overthrow 95% if that 5% is exceedingly well armed and very vicious, and that their cause isn't the overthrow of the existing regime. Their cause is their leaders and their dogma, so that they're fighting for something, not just against something. And so I analyzed what I was witnessing in Iran, and I said several things. First of all, they don't have that critical mass. This is not 3 to 5% of Iranians that are marching here. It's not even, it's a tiny fraction of 1%. So they don't have critical mass. Second of all, they're not well enough armed. And so that's not going to work from that point of view. And third, and this is the most important, they don't like the government, but they have nothing that galvanizes them to move towards. And if you don't have a go-to, the go-from won't get you there.
Right.
And
yeah,
so
they had no flag. They had nowhere to go. They had no flag.
Nowhere to go.
To rally.
Nowhere to go. And so it was obvious it was going to fail from that perspective. And 100% of regime change operations in the Islamic world have always gone from bad to worse. So there was no chance that was going to work. It was a pile of doo-doo. And it was obvious to say that. And we said it. And it turned out that way. And so this is the Iranians saying, yeah, they thought they could do this. But no, it didn't work out that way. Funny thing is, if you knock somebody, go into a play yard and you kick every boy and girl in the teeth and throw sand in their eyes, they have a tendency not to like you very much.
Sure. And it's always in group, out group sociology 101. Hey, I'm not with those guys, but I'm less with you,
Yeah.
So I mean that's there's always that the others. At least I'm Iranian. At least I had some identity with these people here. Right. I have no identity with the out group.
In Vietnam, when we were dropping napalm and Agent Orange and those things from the sky way above them, the communists didn't have to go much out of their way to say, that's your enemy.
Yeah.
See the insignias on that plane? That's your enemy. And this is the same thing that happened in Iran. We just don't think it through. And another thing we don't recognize, and this is Israel's great mistake, is that they're unwilling to recognize that the enemy is Islam, a religion, not a political force. And so if you attack Hamas, for example, in Gaza, with bullets and bombs, you will play right into their hands. You will make more of them than you could possibly exterminate. And so you can never win a war against a religious foe like Islam with bullets and bombs. It is counterproductive 100% of the time. And you have to wield words wisely. You have to shed your ignorance, know the truth, explain the truth, and fight the battles with reason and evidence. And Israel hasn't figured that out yet. The United States can't figure that out. And we've dumbed down the citizenry to the point that most people are incapable of even processing it. So they thought that they would have a quick victory and that they thought that Iran's missile and drone fire would be quickly extinguished. And they did not believe that Iran could deliver such a powerful response beyond its borders and across the entire region. Every time that Israel and the U.S. say we destroyed all their launchers, the next day's barrage was bigger than the night before. No, it's just not the case.
Europe was getting nervous. Europe was like, oh, they can hit us here if they wanted to. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Global evil Zionism. It's too bad people don't know what Zionism means and who came up with the term. It was Yahweh who came up with the term Zionism, and it means signs posted along the way. But they don't want to say something that sounds anti-Semitic, so they use Zionism. Global evil Zionism had convinced the ignorant president of America that this war could finish Iran.
Is this blaming the Jews? Are we just blaming the Jews here? Just so we're clear.
Some 50% of the posts that I saw on social media this morning prior to the show were all manner of people blaming Israel. It was Benjamin Netanyahu that lied to Iran, that said that a decapitation strike would be all that was necessary and to be a 1 or 2 day war.
Not Trump's fault. No, not true. That Benjamin Netanyahu, that dastardly Jew lied to him.
Oh. Right. Nobody controls Trump. Trump can't even control Trump.
Right.
So it's just an excuse so that the MAGAs don't have to accept blame. They're going to blame the Jews. And because Marxist Americans don't want to accept blame, they're going to blame the Jews. Everyone's going to blame the Jews. But I'm telling you here, well, Netanyahu is a liability to Israel. It's not Israel's fault that Trump got in this mess.
Yeah.
He got in this mess on his own. So they convinced the dunderhead, ignorant president that this war would finish Iran, allowing them to remove this last bastion of humanity and mankind. Well, I'm going to tell you that Iran is not the last bastion of humanity or of mankind to comfortably commit any crime against anyone they wished from then on. Yeah, I'm sorry, but Iran, you're overplaying your hand here. You were not the great stopper to keep
the bulwark
America,
of humanity.
Saving humanity. That you are not. You are the opposite of that. They dreamed of partitioning dear Iran. Well, that's why the Ukrainian war happens. This is the purpose of this war, is they want to partition Iran. They want to partition Russia because of the natural resources. That's why we did the military operation against Venezuela. We want to capture and plunder the wealth of these nations. It is what America does. It's what Europe does, and America and Europe have been doing it for a very long time. So they are absolutely correct. Ultimate leaving Iranians immersed in chaos, instability, insecurity for many long years. It is the strategy of the Mossad and the IDF and Israel to have all of their neighbors have dysfunctional governments and be in total chaos. That is their plan, and they are quite good at carrying it off. It's just a really crappy plan. And the United States CIA does it too. The brave warriors of Islam and their courageous allies of the Axis of Resistance, despite their hearts being wounded and torn by martyrdom of their imam, decided, rallying upon Almighty Allah and following the Lord and Master of the Martyrs. The Lord and Master of the Martyrs. Yeah, Allah is very clear throughout the Quran. There's only two kinds of Muslims. There is the Muslim who has died killing for Allah, and there's the Muslim who will die killing for Allah. And Allah is also very clear that as a Muslim, you have no freedom, that you are a slave to Allah, and Allah will decide your fate, and your fate is to die. It's universal genocide in Islam. You must fight and kill until you are killed. That is universal genocide. That's just side. I don't think we even need to have the Geno in front of it, because it's all inclusive of ethnicities. And they to give the enemies of a historical lesson once and for all. No, this was not the war to end all wars. You're overplaying your hand. They chose to take revenge for all previous crimes and create conditions where the enemy would forever cast away the thought of aggression against dear Iran, fully tasting the favor of humiliation and the abasement before the great nation of Iran. Now, this says we're rubbing your nose in it. You're not only lost, but we want you to be humiliated. Humiliating a foe is something that is never a good idea. They will continue to be your foe if you humiliate them. With this strategy and relying on unprecedented political and social unity established within the country, Iran and the resistance initiated one of the heaviest hybrid battles in the history against America and the Zionist regime, achieving all of its objectives designed for this conflict during the period. No, you didn't achieve all of your objectives, and this was not the heaviest hybrid battle in the history against America. Again, they're reading their own press clippings. They are a propagandist at this point, but they're religious. What do you expect? Iran and their resistance almost completely destroyed the American military machine in the region. No, you didn't sink a single ship, and you brought down 15, 20 planes, probably 20 all total. And you brought down some radar and destroyed some military bases. But that's, again, you're overplaying your hand here. They dealt a crushing and profound blows to the vast infrastructure and facilities that the enemy had built and had stationed around the region over the years for this war against Iran. That wasn't why they were stationed around the Middle East. That was for the petrodollar. The United States made a deal with these family dictators that they could get filthy rich and in selling oil. But the deal was we will protect you as a family dynasty, even from your own people, with our military base here. But the deal is you sell all oil in dollars. And by selling all oil in dollars, the petrodollar system, then America could have deficit financing, could roll up $40 trillion worth of debt and never have to service it and never go bankrupt because there was always a demand for dollars. So that's why those bases were to protect the family dictatorships against their own people in this collaboration with the United States over the petrodollar system. And anyway, it says that in the regional dimensions, they imposed extensive casualties on the criminal American army, and within occupied territories, they delivered heavy and shattering blows to the enemy's forces, infrastructures, facilities, and assets. There were some blows to the assets and facilities, but not American forces. They also constrained the field on all fronts, that not only were none of the enemy's main objectives realized, that's overhyped, but the enemy realized that approximately 10 days after the start of the war that it would in no way have the capacity to win this war. For this reason, it began attempting to establish contact with Iran and requesting a ceasefire through various channels and methods. And that is true. Rather than when you're dealing with someone who is as demonic as Donald Trump, what he's going to tell you is the opposite of what's true. So if he says that Iran is begging for a ceasefire, it means he's begging for a ceasefire. And what they're doing here is confirming that that's true. The honorable nation of Iran must know that by the grace of their children's struggle and their heroic presence on the scene, the enemy has been pleading for over a month on the occasion or for the cessation of fierce fire of Iran and the resistance. However, the country's officials, because it had decided from the very beginning that the war would continue until objectives were achieved, including the enemy's regret and desperation and the removal of long-term threats from the country, gave a negative response to all of these requests, and the war continued until today, which is the 40th day. It's partially true. It was called the dead hand, and we examined that, which is the Ayatollah knew that he was sacrificing his life. He was already, 87 years old and in poor health, but he wrote what's called a dead hand letter, which means that you will continue to fight. No one can tell you not to fight, but you just continue to shoot your missiles and your drones and never stop doing so. So furthermore, Iran has so far rejected several deadlines presented by the President of the United States and continues to emphasize that it grants no importance to any type of deadline from the enemy. We now give tidings to the great nation of Iran that almost all war objectives has been realized, and your brave children have driven the enemy to a historic helplessness and a lasting defeat. Iran's historic decision, backed by the unified support of the entire nation, is to continue this battle for as long as is necessary until its massive achievements are consolidated and a new security and political equations are created in the region based upon the acceptance of the power and sovereignty of Iran and the resistance. What he's doing there is he's begging for legitimacy. He doesn't want the people of Iran now to rise up because of the bankrupt economy and the like until all these things are put into place. And if they don't happen, then he's trying to oversell again his hand. He's being a propagandist. In this regard, and according to the prudence of the supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution, His Eminence Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Khamenei, may Allah protect him, and the approval of the Supreme National Security Council, in considering Iran and the resistance upper hand in the battlefield, it's not really true either. The enemy's inability to carry out its threats despite all claims and formal acceptance of the rightful demands of the Iranian people. And that's not true either, but nonetheless, it was decided that negotiations be held. He just had to preface this with lots of, we're great, they lost, otherwise they'll turn on him, and he knows it. It was decided that negotiations be held in Islamabad to finalize the details. This is so that within a maximum of 15 days, with the finalization of the details, Iran's victory on the field shall also be consolidated into political negotiations. By the way, they should know that a political agreement with the United States is as worthless as a political agreement with an Islamic country. And the Quran actually says that any agreement between a Muslim and non-Muslim is not binding on the Muslim. It's the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. 9th Surah is the one that presents that. So negotiating a deal with an Islamic nation is a waste of ink. The religion will not allow it to be supported, but in this case, it's the United States that's not trustworthy. So you got two avowed and acknowledged liars saying we're gonna shake hands and have a deal. To this end, while rejecting all plans presented by the enemy, Iran drafted a 10-point plan and presented it to the American side via the country of Pakistan. It emphasized fundamental points such as the controlled passage through the Strait of Hormuz in coordination with Iran's armed forces, which grants Iran a unique economic and geopolitical position. The necessity of ending the war against all components of the axis of resistance, which signifies a historic defeat for the aggression of the child killing Israeli regime. This child killing that is being thrust upon Israel to demean Israel is such nonsense. The withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from all bases and deployment points in the region. Well, that's a bitter blow for the petrodollar and for all of those Arab fiefdoms. The establishment of a secure transit protocol in the Strait of Hormuz such that it guarantees Iranian dominance according to agreed protocol, that is correct, and full payment of Iran's damages according to estimates. Full payment. The removal of all primary and secondary sanctions and resolutions on the Board of Governors and the Security Council, and the release of all blocked Iranian properties and assets abroad. And finally, the approval of all of these items in a binding Security Council resolution. It is worth noting that the approval of this, in other words, saying we're not going to trust the United States, it has to be in a Security Council resolution. It is worth noting that the approval of this resolution will turn all of these agreements into binding international law and will create an important diplomatic victory for the nation of Iran. Now, the Honorable Prime Minister of Pakistan has informed Iran that the American side, despite all outward threats, has accepted these principles as the basis for negotiations and has surrendered to the will of the Iranian nation. Accordingly, at the highest level, it has been decided that Iran will engage in negotiation in Islamabad with the American side for a period of 2 weeks based solely upon these principles, the 10-point plan. It emphasized that this does not mean the end of the war. Iran will only accept the termination of the war once the details, given the acceptance of Iran's preferred principles in the 10-point plan, are finalized in the negotiations. These negotiations will begin in Islamabad on Friday, April 10, with complete distrust of the American side. And Iran will allocate 2 weeks for these talks. The United States is sending Kirchner again and Witkoff. I mean, Tweedledee and Tweedle Thief.
Well, maybe they'll get a new casino out of all this.
Yeah, Tweedledee and Tweedle Thief. I was just wondering
how much money they think they can graft off this exactly in a surrender. You got to try.
Yeah, neither one is a professional diplomat. Neither one knows diddly squat about war. Neither fought. No. These are two carpetbaggers. This framework is extendable by mutual agreement. It is essential that during this period, complete national unity be maintained and victory celebrations continue with strength. The current negotiations are national negotiations and a continuation of the battlefield. It is necessary for all people, elites, and political groups to trust and support this process, which is under the supervision of the leader of the revolution and the highest levels of the system, and to security to strictly avoid any divisive comments. And we're a dictatorship, and we're going to act like one.
Yeah, they don't have internet, so they've got that part on lockdown.
Yeah, man. We're a dictatorship, and we're going to act like one.
Mm-hmm.
And punishments will continue until morale improves.
Right.
If the enemy's surrender on the battlefield is transformed into a decisive political achievement in the negotiations, we will celebrate this massive historical victory together. Otherwise, we will fight side by side on the battlefield until all of the demands of the Iranian nation are met. You can't fight side by side on the battlefield unless the Iranians decide that they're going to take the battle to Israel, which is what the prophets say is going to happen. That large army that comes into Israel that everybody's been confused over and thinking maybe it was China, something. No, it's Iran. It's described very clearly as Iran. So our hands are on the trigger, and the moment the slightest error is committed by the enemy, it will be responded to with full power. And guess what? Sir, didn't we find that Israel bombed Beirut and continued to have its way with Hezbollah? And what happened? The Iranians unleashed a barrage, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, they shot at Jerusalem last night, cluster bombs in Jerusalem, which is very, it's not common for them to shoot into Jerusalem, in the north, in the south. I mean, yeah, it was quite a bit.
Yeah.
My Shofar app was going off all night long. So
yeah. The fact of the matter is that they have perfected that cluster missile, where you'd have to take it out before it enters into Israeli airspace, and Israel doesn't have any friends in the region. Otherwise, it will, at very high altitude, it will separate into all of its 15 to 20 cluster bombs, and they will spread over a wide area, and there's no way to take them out with any defense system.
And who's what's the upside for any country that, I mean, we know Jordan's not going to say, hey, you guys can put some of your interceptors here, because they're Muslim. But if they were to do that, what's the upside for Jordan? Because then the bomblets come down in Jordan,
Correct.
So
no, yeah, Jordan's going to do the same thing Jordan's always done, which is that the monarchy is very, very profitable, and we'll do everything we can to play all sides against the middle, because the monarchy is very, very profitable, and we don't really care about the people, and we're going to opt out of every cause.
Yeah. All
right. So this man here, Donald Dumpster, Rahab, Satan incarnate, the great betrayer of Israel, is, it says in that picture there, is the hostage of Iran. He is. He might as well be a prisoner of war of Iran. But he started this war. He got himself into this mess, and there's no way out of it, because we're going to go through the 10-point plan. It's called a 10-point peace plan, submitted during April 2026, this month. And it is with the U.S., and it includes the following key demands. Now, I will summarize it before we get into it. With Iran's 10-point plan, the U.S., the United States, gets nothing. There isn't a single point in this plan that is of benefit to the United States. The Arab states get nothing. Israel gets nothing. And Iran gets everything. Now I'm going to slice this plan down a little bit. There's 2 points which are non-points and are redundant. So it's really an 8-point plan. The first point, which is the commitment to non-aggression and a permanent end to the war, I just say that that's what this might put it up in the heading. This is the following 8 points are to bring about an end to this war. So neither of those are negotiation points. So it's not a point to negotiate, not part of a 10-point plan. It's just a misplaced header. It should have been in the header of the presentation. So now it's an 8-point plan. All right. 3 points are baseline requirements for the end of any conflict. Those are no primary sanctions, no secondary sanctions, and release of all of Iran's frozen assets. That you have no right to do it outside of conflict. And so that's not even a negotiating point. There won't even be a 2 seconds of discussion on any one of those three.
Right.
Okay, so it's not even there to be discussed. It's a fait accompli.
A given.
That is
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right. An absolute given. So that now makes it a 5-point plan. There are 2 points in here that Iran will negotiate, and I think they will capitulate considerably on one and completely capitulate on another. And I'll share what those two are, but just as a hint. The United States will not agree to and will not be paying war reparations because Iran will achieve its economic recompense by taxing the traffic in the Gulf of Hormuz. So,
and who's going to take our dollar anyway at this point?
Right.
I mean, are they going to make us pay them in Chinese yuan? I mean,
yeah, I don't know. So they can. That's something that they will toss in as, okay, you got us there. So that will be given away. And the other one is on uranium enrichment. They'll be glad to say we'll give up uranium enrichment. Actually, but it'll be part of the negotiation. They're not going to give it up until you capitulate on the three that we want, and we'll negotiate on these two. But uranium enrichment is no longer of interest to the Iranians. They don't need it. They have enough uranium at fissile grade purity to have anywhere from 15 to 30 bombs, depending on their yield. So they don't need it. And my guess is that there was a gift with purchase on the 500 North Korean missiles. They came with a gift of purchase. So I don't think that, I think it's easy for the Iranians at this point to say, yeah, we'll not enrich any more uranium.
Not to mention the nuclear deterrent, whenever you never really had the nuclear deterrent, and you have just shown the world that you didn't need the nuclear deterrent to make the U.S. go home,
absolutely true,
clear out their bases. True.
Destroy the Arab Sunni dictatorships, and to destroy the bases of the U.S. and to get Israel to capitulate. Yeah, they have proven that. So it's a 3-point plan. And we'll go through those 3 points in a moment. Well, one of those 3 points turns Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait into vassals of Iran. Literally turns them into vassals of Iran, which is why the family dictators, the head of those fiefdoms, are crapping in their pampers. Nothing they can do about it. And they know there's nothing they can do about it. They have hundreds of billions of dollars of U.S. weapons and don't know how to use them, and have no one that can use them. They depended on the U.S. They thought they were bribing the U.S. for military support, and the U.S. abandoned them and made them more vulnerable. So one of these points turns, and it's the control over the strait. The control over the strait turns the Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait into vassals of Iran. And it gives Iran economic control over most of the world. They can determine the fate of the of the world. And it's not just that; it's like 35% of fertilizer, and many other things that are important. With all that energy, they can produce aluminum, and there's many other chemicals that are available there and in very few other places because of their part of the oil extraction business. So huge deprivation of things the world needs if they control the straits. Now, another of those three leaves Israel and the Arab fiefdoms defenseless against Iran by castrating the U.S. military. It leads to the end of the petrodollar system, and it opens Iran up to a land invasion of Israel by formally giving Iraq to Iran. And that's the expelling of the U.S. from the region. And the only thing that would preclude Iran from sending 2 million troops in to destroy Israel is the U.S. military bases in Iraq, which would block the path. They have to leave. The third of these 3 points leaves Israel perpetually vulnerable to Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Shia militias in Iraq, because it's the end of all hostilities. Now, should these 3 points be accepted, Iran becomes the undisputed leader of the Islamic world. They become the most pronounced hero and perceived savior. They push Erdogan off to the side and says, "Hey, man, you're just nothing but a windbag." They're the dominant force. And the rank and file Muslims are going to hail them as they conquered America. All right, so we'll go through these 10-point plans. The first one is should have been the heading: commitment to non-aggression by the U.S. and no further acts of aggression against Iran. That should be the title of the page, and the bottom one is the same. That's why I'd say that it's an 8-point plan. The second is essential, and it is devastating. This is complete surrender. Continued Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz, with safe passage coordinated through Iran's armed forces. And other versions of this 10-point plan, they lay it out very succinctly, how you'd have to register your ship, how you register your crew, how you have to buy the oil in Chinese yuan, not US dollars, where that oil would be going. You have to designate the identity of every crew member. You have to submit to being boarded by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. You're escorted by Iranian boats that are designed to sink these ships if they don't comply. And you have to pay, the initial fee was $1 per barrel, essentially $2 million per vessel. That is the ultimate win for Iran. Acceptance of Iran's uranium enrichment rights as part of its nuclear program. This is one that Iran will negotiate on. They don't need to enrich any more uranium. So it's there because they are smart enough to know that if you're going to enter negotiation, you got to have something to give to get your points. And so they'll and Trump will make a big deal about they've given up uranium enrichment rights. They don't need to refine any more uranium. They have 1,000 pounds of uranium already enriched to make nuclear bombs. This next two are window dressing because they're givens. Lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions imposed by the U.S., termination of all UN Security Council and IAEA, International Atomic Energy Association, Board of Governors resolutions against Iran. Those are givens. The next one is one that they'll negotiate: payment of compensation to Iran for war-related damages and reconstruction costs. The United States isn't going to do that. And if the United States did it, would be with funding money anyway, and so it wouldn't go anywhere. So Iran has, with the control of the Straits of Hormuz, the way to tax that waterway as a toll booth, such that they will have war reparations, and that's what they will do. And so they'll negotiate this point for that one. This next one, of course, is one of the three that's devastating: withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from all regional bases and deployment points. That means Syria, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar.
Maybe Turkey. I mean, what is regional to them? They don't really.
I don't think from Turkey, but Turkey doesn't have a lot of U.S. forces. They have a lot of U.S. weapons. And Turkey doesn't need U.S. forces. Turkey would rather just have the U.S. NATO weapons than they would anything else. But NATO's going to be nothing by the time this is all done.
Right.
It's likely that the U.S. will withdraw from NATO. NATO is nothing without the U.S. NATO will cease to exist. So that's it. You do that, of course, the petrodollar system is gone. That was the whole basis of the petrodollar system. U.S. influence in the region is over. The U.S. is a whipped dog, cornered. Next is cessation of hostilities on all fronts, including in Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen. You notice they didn't mention the Fakistinians. And the reason they didn't mention them is they don't want a sensation of hostilities for them. They want a sensation with Hezbollah, with the Shia militias in Iraq, and with the Houthis, because they can arm up and get ready for the great jihad. But they want the Fakistinians in Israel to continue the battle. And they don't want, when they continue to kill Jews, they don't want that to be a breach of this agreement. So that's why they were not listed.
Yeah, and Syria is going to flip back over to whoever's the dominant player between the Sauds and Iran anyway, because, I mean, they just want to kill Jews. I mean, ISIS just want to, they don't.
Yeah. Syria is now run by the Islamic State. Completely worthless country. We broke it. We flooded Europe and America with Syrian Muslims. And now we gave that country to the Islamic State. You couldn't be in a worse position than we're in Syria. The next two are givens. Well, one is a given. The other one should have been a title. Release of all frozen Iranian assets held abroad and then a permanent end to the war, not merely a temporary ceasefire. Those are givens. So it's a 3-point plan, and all 3 points, America is devastated. It's a unmitigated surrender. And there are lots of MAGAs that are going to recognize that. And Rogan is saying it now. Certainly Tucker Carlson's saying it. Candace Owens will say it. They're all going to be echoing the same thing. And so it's, I saw, was it Kent, the white supremacist and anti-Semite that resigned the Trump administration over condemning Israel for being the cause of the war. He is now out saying that now America needs to withhold all arms sales and gifts to Israel, hold Israel accountable, that the only way we can have the Trump's lasting peace in the region is to shackle Israel. And he wants Israel destroyed. Yeah. And that's the voice that you're going to hear. All right, so we have to say, why did Trump capitulate? This is a total and complete surrender. Why did he do it? So I've got 15 reasons that could have been one of them or all of them, and maybe I left something out. I'm open to hearing what others think that might be a reason, but I think that all of these are viable. The first one I have categorized as the big boys, and they finally manned up. China and Russia collectively threatened to either enter the war, protect Iran, destroy U.S. assets in the Middle East, short U.S. bonds, and or embargo rare earths. Anyone which would cripple the United States.
One of those things you listed on there is catastrophic, and
yes.
So they can just take their pick on
right. And Russia can say, hey, this war in Iran has been great for business and for our economy. Thank you very much. No more sanctions on Russian oil shipments, and the price just tripled. So, yay, thank you for doing that. But the destruction of an ally, it's a whole different story. The obliteration of an ally, Russia can't just stand by. They look like wimps. And China can get all the oil it needs from Russia, serving both countries and bringing them even more tightly together. It does not need Iran, but they can't have a ally of that consequence destroyed by the United States and look like they have any backbone. So the big boys likely stood up and said, you pushed it too far this time, Donald. We're not going to embarrass you publicly, but I'm here to tell you that if you actually use atomic weapons to destroy Iran, you will be completely isolated in the world, and that we will be forced to deploy our military against you. And you can't stop our missiles. You can't stop our torpedoes, or we'll take out the fleet as it exists in the Middle East.
They have been positioned for a long time for this overland route of trade.
Yes, they have.
Into China and Russia.
The Belt and Road Initiative. hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe trillions of dollars in that, to bypass the seas. And they wanted to bypass the sea routes, which also brought Russia and China closer together with pipelines and the like, because America was like Carthage of old, and it imposed its will on the world and imposed itself as the reserve currency by controlling sea traffic. That's exactly how Carthage ruled so long ago. It's why the prophets equate America to Carthage of old. So both countries can survive without the destruction of the United States. Both countries would prefer the destruction of the United States to play out over a longer period of time, because it's bad for business for it to go out, because it'll take down Europe and many countries in Asia, and they lose their markets. So despite what you're being told, China and Russia actually do not want the United States to collapse economically. It'd be bad for them. But they're not going to allow the United States to be this belligerent either. So option number one is the big boys stepped up. And this is what Trump was told. He had a conversation with both of them, and they said, no, you're not going to do this. So think again, you are not going to do this. If you do this thing, this is what we will do to you. Second, and I think this is as big a reason as any, the MAGA mutiny. The MAGA mutiny is in full boil. And the thing that really caused it to go is that Tucker Carlson did a video where he called Trump, he says, "You are evil." And he attacked him for his F-bomb, praise be to Allah post on Easter. And he inferred that he was the Antichrist. Now, if you have a MAGA of that size audience, that turns on you and say, you're effectively the Antichrist, you're Satan.
Right.
Now, most people don't know this, but he admits that Tucker Carlson admits that he is demon possessed. He tells the whole story of how the demons came upon him one night and the scars they left on him, and how that whole thing went down. And he is clearly owned and controlled by Qatar. So when the devil is calling Satan out, this is it's a real skirmisher. So there is a mutiny among MAGA, and if Trump loses the MAGA, I mean, it's just over. And I think that because of Joe Rogan with his huge audience, and Candace Owens with her huge audience, and with Carlson Tucker and his huge audience, all coming out against Trump and this war in these last few weeks, senators and congressmen like their gravy train.
Yeah.
And the Republicans are saying now to Trump, don't do this. That it was enough senators, Republican senators and congressmen, that came to Trump and said, that's too far. America is not supporting this war. MAGA doesn't even support this war. You need to end this war, not escalate this war, because if you don't, then our only chance of survival as a political party will be to impeach and convict you. And we will do so if you do this thing. If you become the great annihilator, if you make America the most genocidal nation in human history, we will impeach
overtly.
You.
If you overtly
do this, we will impeach you. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the MAGA meltdown, if you will, that Trump would be convicted and impeached. And if Trump is impeached and convicted, he goes to jail. Yeah, he doesn't just go off like, Richard Nixon decided he wouldn't fight it and he resigned. Trump has so many sentences that from his prior criminal convictions, and so many trials that they just suspended when he became president, and so many crimes that he has committed since that time. Trump is going to jail. He will die in jail if they do this thing, and he knows it, and he's scared to death of that. Midterm rejections is related to this. But Trump realized that by continuing the war, he would lose the midterms to the extent impeachment would be a foregone conclusion. With it, convictions and an onslaught of other cases and jail time. That's why Trump keeps on saying, I don't think we need more elections in America. We don't need the midterms. Why he wants the Save America Act so he can control how votes are counted and who can vote. He realizes that that another round of voting, he's gone. And I've always said that there would not be a presidential election, another one, and that the midterms are unlikely unless they're completely controlled. And if they aren't controlled and the midterms happen and the result is as we think it would be, Trump won't certify that the incoming Congress. He will do everything he can with his ICE army or with some other form of chaos such that America will be in martial law and it won't matter. He's not leaving the White House. Yeah. So the midterm rejections are severe, and Iran has continued to say that they would see this battle through at least to the midterms to make certain that Trump paid a huge penalty. Trump even said yesterday that if it was up to him, he would just steal Iran's oil. He says there's nothing they could do to stop it. And he said, so I'd make a profit. I'd go steal the oil. But he says Americans are tired of the war, and so they want us to pull out. So I guess I won't be able to steal it. So he knows that America is opposed to the war. That
was the Carg Island plan. Is we could just go there and steal the hub where it all comes out. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't think there might be a spigot somewhere on the mainland that
a valve they would turn off,
that they would turn off, that so you wouldn't get any oil there?
Well, he's a great negotiator, so he would just negotiate a price for the passage of their own oil through Carg Island. See, yeah,
like
we didn't take that
$125 a barrel.
Right.
Good luck with that. EU jail is the next. He has so infuriated the leaders of the EU that I'm fairly certain that there have been, whether it's Merckx or Starmer or Macron or one of them or all of them have told Trump that he is going to be indicted on war crimes, genocide even, in The Hague, so that if he escalates this war to the extent that he obliterates Iran, that he will be tried, he will be convicted as a war criminal. And that means that he could never leave the United States ever again.
Well, Israel. We know he goes to Israel. We know he shows up during Ramadan and on the, so
Israel would protect him. He has two places he can go in the world, the United States and Israel, because he would be convicted as a war criminal. Probably will be anyway. Number 5, Iranian nukes. I think there's a significant possibility that Iran informed the Pakistani negotiators, or that China and Russia were the ones who explained that some number of the 500 intercontinental missiles that Iran received and installed from North Korea, shipped via China and Russia, were equipped with a gift with purchase. And the gift, nuclear warheads. North Korea would love to see them tested.
Yes.
They gave them the missiles, they gave them the warheads. Mm-hmm. And so they simply threatened the U.S. They said, with what we have, your fleet can't get far enough away. And there's nothing you can do to deter a nuclear explosion in the atmosphere above your ships. We'll take them all out, the entire fleet. And in addition to that, we will nuke the coasts of America. Well, that's what I think that would be a very strong message. Okay, you're going to destroy us? I'm telling you, we have a dead hand switch, and we now have 500 international ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and they're equipped with North Korean warheads.
Just one on either coast is crippling to the United States with the amount of GDP that is generated either in California or on the East Coast. DC, New York. You don't have to.
How would you like to be the president that causes a city like Philadelphia or New York or Washington D.C.,
Houston,
I would like to be, Miami, to be destroyed in a nuclear attack because you were an idiot?
Yeah.
Make America great again? I don't think so. The next 6, there has been a military mutiny. After the firing, and I thought it was 8 when I did this morning, but I think now the number is 12 generals. 12 generals have been fired by Hexit for refusing a ground invasion. And some of them were likely fired over the annihilation thing, where they all have, at that level, you have a staff lawyers who are appraised in international law, and they know what you can and can't do. And you cannot use the excuse, I was giving an order, I was just following orders. If you follow an order that is a criminal act internationally, you become a war criminal, and you'll be convicted as such. And so they've already had to fire 12 generals for refusing to carry out Trump's belligerence. And so if you tell the military to do something and it refuses to do it, your situation is far worse than just looking inept. You couldn't do what you said you were going to do, which is why he accepted the Iranian plan, because the military said, no, we are not annihilating an entire civilization in one night. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to jail with you, man.
Yeah, I'm not going to jail with you. This is a wrong thing to do. We are not going to do that thing. Then you have nothing. You know, militaries exist in most countries to ensure that the government continues. They don't exist primarily to defend the country. The U.S. military has really never defended the United States anyway. It exists to project the influence of America and the will of the political elite and the business elite, but it doesn't protect America. And if you go against the military establishment, well, you get the Kennedy treatment, the JFK treatment. Number 7 is nuclear oblivion. The only way to carry out Trump's threat to obliterate an entire civilization the size and population of Iran in one night is via nuclear bombs. But if used, the U.S. would be cut off from the entire world and would fail immediately and catastrophically. It would be suicide. You might as well detonate the bombs over U.S. cities as blow up Iran. That's how devastating and certain that would be.
And it doesn't do anything. It doesn't open up the Strait of Hormuz, doesn't drop the price of oil, doesn't do any of your goals. Iran is just gone, and you have a mess because now no one can use the Strait of Hormuz, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, you can accomplish nothing other than you commit suicide. Number 8 is die now or die later. Most people will choose to die later rather than die now. Even people that are being tortured will choose to die later versus die now. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, and or Bahrain told Trump to back down. Now, I know they're all positioning in the media saying exactly the opposite, which means that what the media is saying is not true. It never is. But they would have been the ones that have told Trump to back down, realizing that the killing of millions of Iranians by the U.S. would turn the Muslim youth in their countries against those family dictators that were supporting and aiding and abetting this enemy of Islam for having supported the U.S. And they are faced with the choice of die now as a result of the destruction of their kingdoms and the resulting riots, because there would be no oil to sell for revenue. There'd be no water to drink. There'd be no electricity. You imagine how hot it's going to get? And no food. If the U.S. did that, those countries would all be deprived of their oil revenue, water, electricity, and food. And the dictators would be forever leagued with the great Satan against the death of millions of Muslims, and they would rise up against those dictators and their dead men walking. So die soon, or they can die later because they're going to be vassals of Iran, and that's what removing the U.S. military bases and giving Iran ongoing control of the Straits of Hormuz makes all of those countries vassals of Iran.
MBS was so close to his goal of being the Islamic savior, the Islamic, grand poobah of the Islamic world,
close.
with and getting the control of the Temple Mount. I mean, he just had all those pieces in place.
So close. So close, but nope. The next is 9, bursting the bubble. Also in the same place of the world, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, and or Bahrain collectively or individually told Trump that the Petrodollar agreement was over. That agreement was that the U.S. would protect them if they would sell all their oil in dollars. The U.S. not only undermined the value of those dollars by deficit spending, the tune of $40 trillion, printing money as opposed to earning something, but they abandoned those bases at the beginning of the war. And they did nothing to prevent the destruction of infrastructure within those countries. So the United States was a net liability as opposed to an asset, so there's no reason to continue the petrodollar system. So petrodollar agreement's over. We're going to burst the bubble. No petrodollars, then the U.S. cannot service its debt. Right now, the only thing the U.S. can do, because no one is buying U.S. T-bills, is, their position in U.S. T-bills is being decreased radically in Japan and throughout Europe, in China, and of course, Russia doesn't have it anymore. So no one's buying them. A lot of people are selling them, and the U.S. has to have buyers for them to fund the debt. It's not just the deficit each year, it's the turnover of the debt. This year, they have to service $4 trillion worth of T-bills with no one to buy them, which means the only thing they can do is quantitative easing, which is the illusion of solvency by simply increasing the monetary supply so that the U.S. creates the illusion of purchasing them. But when you increase the monetary supply by $4 trillion, and you do it year after year,
now you will
completely undermine the value
of
the fiat currency, so that it takes wheelbarrows to buy a loaf of bread. That's where we are. So they can just say it's over. The U.S. failed to protect them. It made them more vulnerable. So they demanded that the U.S. do whatever Iran wanted to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Whatever Iran wanted, you need to do. And you need to keep Iran from doing what it said it was going to do, because Iran said that if you attack their infrastructure, they would destroy the infrastructure and all of the surrounding Arab Sunni fiefdoms. And so they said, hey, they're not kidding, and we got no way to defend ourselves, and you aren't an asset, so capitulate, or else we will not only not honor the petrodollar system, we won't sell any oil in dollars going forward. And so everyone goes bankrupt. It's worldwide depression. So they just said, no, stop it. The next is betrayal. And in this case, he would be the perpetrator of betrayal as opposed to the recipient of betrayal. This is not the MAGAs betraying him. This is Donald Trump finding somebody to betray so that he's not slathered with the guilt. So J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio told Trump that he could shed responsibility for the greatest blunder in American history and live another day as a politician if he does what the groundswell is happening now around the world. Just blame the Jews. Blame Netanyahu. Abandon Israel. The nation, both MAGAs and Marxists, is primed for it. This would leave Israel isolated, demeaned, and indefensible. Betrayal. That's what Yahweh says about Rahab, that he's going to betray you. Makes all those wonderful promises of supporting you, and when it comes down to action, he will betray you. What the prophet said, they're never wrong. Number 11, he's just flat out trapped. He is a rat in a corner with no place to go. And this is how I see him. This is how he must even recognize himself. That's why he's been so belligerent. With no way to win, after miserably failing to capture Iran's 420 kilos, which is about 1,000 pounds of uranium tetrachloride. That's the uranium in the state that's ready to metallize and put into a bomb. Under the guise of that rescue mission, there are enough people out that are very credible on military tactics and personnel that have stated, and I've watched their programs last night, that was not a rescue mission. That was a failed raid on Iran, the Isfahan facility, to steal the uranium, and it failed. The C-130s were overloaded. The runway that they chose to use wouldn't hold the weight of the C-130s. They bogged down. They had to destroy all of the aircraft. They just failed. And Trump couldn't handle that idea of that failure. So he also would have known, he'd been told emphatically, that's why there's so many generals being fired, that while the 20,000 U.S. Special Forces, the best of America's fighting force, could have taken any number of islands in the Persian Gulf, they couldn't hold any of them. There'd be absolutely no benefit, and you're now putting 20,000 American lives, the best of the U.S. service personnel, in a position that's almost certain death. And so the thing he wanted to do, he couldn't do. And there was no way to invade Iran, which is the next thing that you would say, okay, how do I solve this? You invade Iran. But you can't invade Iran without increasing the size of the U.S. military six-fold or five-fold, 600%. That's how many troops you would need. And the casualties would be astronomical, of course, in the many hundreds of thousands. But that's how many troops you would need to invade and occupy a country the size of Iran with its geography. Is you would need to increase the U.S. Armed Forces deployment troops into the millions, 2 to 3 million troops.
And they didn't
And the
even
only way
have
to do
that
that,
many. Yeah, they
you have
didn't
to go
even
right
have
back
that
to the
many
ground.
in Iraq, in Afghanistan during that whole, 2 million
No.
boots on the ground, and that was with NATO's help. That was with,
Right.
all your allies involved too.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
And
your
that was a
experts
much
touching this.
bigger. It was a much bigger military then, by almost twice than we have now.
Mhm.
So the invasion of Iran had a zero possibility, and he was appraised that the U.S. was also running out of missiles and interceptors, and he was faced with the retreat of the Gerald Ford, our most expensive warship, and for similar potty problems that Trump himself has and spoiled laundry. Same thing. I mean, that Gerald Ford got Trumpism. Potty problems and soiled laundry, and no possibility of reopening the strait. So Trump simply just gave up. Said, "Okay, it's over. I'll just declare victory. I'm really good at convincing people that I'm right. I'll declare victory." But he just totally capitulated. Point 12. He's demonic. He's not just your run-of-the-mill demon. This is not Hitler. This is not Stalin. This is not Genghis or Kublai Khan. This is not Hadrian. This is a very, very special level of demon. This goes back to the Pauline and Muhammad caliber of demon, where it's likely Satan himself. And so Satan's scheming here would be that genocide is something that Satan is in favor of. He loves genocide. Just read the Quran. But from the devil's purview, there is something about perpetrating genocide when the first fatalities happen to be your favorite religion. I mean, you've got a religion where you've got 2 billion people that believe you're God, that will, go off and kill anybody you want them to kill. You don't start a mass genocide of the world by killing your most devoted followers.
Right.
And so Satan is saying here, come on, pal, you just got way ahead of yourself here. Yeah, we want genocide, but we're not going to start with Muslims. They're mine. So no, and so he's not going to destroy the most diabolical Islamic nation, especially when they would destroy Israel before he has the opportunity to. Yes, Satan wants to destroy Israel, but he wants to destroy Israel. He wants credit being to destroy it. He wants Trump to arrive in Israel as a god. He wants full glory. And if Israel is destroyed before he has the chance to do that, that's not a plan that fits Satan. So just as Satan had to demon possess Paul to control his enormous ego so he could rein Paul in and say, you're pushing it here, pal. We're trying to create a religion people can actually believe in, or a scenario that works, and you're pushing it over the edge. So I need to rein you back. The same thing is true with Trump. So just as Satan had to temper Paul's ego and ambitions, he is doing the same for Donald Trump, even humbling his proxy in the process. I can tell you, Paul never liked being Satan's stooge. And Muhammad didn't like it either. It's a miserable life. And Trump, that's why he's shitting in his pants. He hates it too. Number 13 is flat out suicide. And this is from Israel's perspective. Israel is essentially out of interceptors. And the interceptors don't work against the cluster munitions. They don't work against the hypersonic missiles. Its infrastructure is in tatters. Water desalination, oil refineries, electrical grids. Israel is really in bad shape. Its economy is ruined too. It has depleted its manpower. Now the division in Israel between the Marxists and the Haredim has reached a fever pitch. Lapid came out today and said, it's the biggest disaster in the history of Israel. This peace treaty was declared with the enemy of Israel, and you didn't even have a seat at the table. Your opinion wasn't even consulted. You weren't asked what you thought. Total capitulation. You lost, Bibi.
Well, that was something whenever you were reading Iran's response, they said, complete secession by both parties. And I'm like, but there's more than two here. Where's Israel? I get that Hezbollah is a lip service. I mean, they are essentially Iran, they are Iran's puppet, but you don't even give them a mention in the ceasefire with Hezbollah, nothing. So it's like, there's more than two parties there. There's at least five factions that are, three on two.
Iran speaks and controls and influences and funds arms, Hezbollah, the Houthis,
sure,
and the Shia militias in Iraq. And so they are the resistance of the axis of resistance, and so they speak for all of them. But there are three parties to the war: Israel, the United States, and Iran. And the U.S. left Israel out.
Yeah.
And Israel went all in with Trump, and Trump abandoned them. We knew it was going to happen. We said it, 18 months ago. I told Israel it's going to happen. I have bruised fingers from typing in X and Facebook, telling Jews that you're bragging about how your destruction of Gaza is such a good thing, and how your war with Hezbollah is such a good thing, and your first war with Iran was such a good thing, and your love affair with Trump is such a good thing, and your love affair with the IDF is such a good thing, and your Mossad affinity is such a good thing. And I'm here to tell you, they're all going to betray you. And this is what the prophet says. This is how it's turned out and going to turn out. And you've just committed suicide, and I'm just hoping that a few of you wake up. So Israel committed suicide. Now, there's been a lot of chatter here over the last month that when the world knows that Israel's on the ropes, Israel may not admit it, but the world knows Israel's on the ropes. Israel has long had the Samson option, which is that if we're on the ropes, we're going to take the world out with us. We have 100 some odd nuclear bombs, and we're going to deploy them. and we'll take the entire world out. We're not going to go alone. And so the U.S. had to do something that precludes Israel from that option. And ending the war on any terms was better than Israel deploying nuclear bombs. And so Israel's suicide to survive this onslaught is what may have been a factor in all of it. Because abandon, what is Israel going to do? Of course, the 14th point is just strictly confabulation. The Copper Khan convinced himself that he has won by regurgitating his favorite palette of lies. He believes that he is the best negotiator in the world and that his threat of complete annihilation led to a negotiated settlement, even without negotiations. He never bothered to read the Iranian terms of surrender, and he doesn't think that anyone else will either. They won't do what we just did on this show. Right. That's what he thinks. And, it was not easy to find the Iranian response. I went through social media and I went through the mainstream media. No one presented it.
Yeah, the things that were being bandied about last night that I was seeing on internet was some people were saying, "Is this a joke? Is this can't beat the right document? Is this from several months ago, like you were saying? These 10 points and everything." No one could really get down to, this is actually what the Pakistanis sent.
Yes.
This is
what the only guy that actually had it right was Midas Touch Network, the fellow there with the glasses who is so anti-Trump. That's a YouTube channel that has a huge following and exposes the insanity of Trump quite regularly. And they had it pretty much right as a first release last night, but they did not share the Iranian response. And if you don't know the Iranian response, it is actually quite difficult to have an understanding of how the American position is nothing but lies. And that's really where we are. The American position, Trump's position, everything he says about this conflict and where we are right now is nothing but lies. And you don't know that until you hear the Iranian position. And while the Iranian position is also full of a lot of lies, you cut to the chase and it was the U.S. that surrendered. So Trump has just never bothered to read the Iranian terms of surrender. He didn't think anyone else would either. And so he thought that since he thinks he's what did he say the other day? I could become the president of Venezuela because my popularity in Venezuela is higher than anybody in the history of Venezuela. All I have to do is learn Spanish. That'd be easy for me because I'm great with languages. Well, maybe with the exception of English.
Right.
But yes, he thinks he's the great orator and that he will, as you began this whole process, declare that he has ended his ninth war.
I honestly think that he doesn't see this as an end. This is just the next stage. He doesn't look far enough down the road to think that there's going to be any consequence. We'll just renegotiate. We'll take this, we'll move some pieces around, and then we'll just renegotiate again. And I'll get them the next time. I'll come around on it,
Yeah, that's right. The next is file destruction. This is the 15th. You don't see it on your list. I sent you a newer version of this as I went through the day, so you can bring that down because this doesn't show up on your list. File destruction. This is really an interesting thought, and I think there's likely a lot of truth to this. Rather than destroying Iran's infrastructure as a mask and a cover, a distraction from the Epstein files, Trump replaced Bondi so that her deputy, Todd Blanche, would destroy the most incriminating of the Epstein files. Todd Blanche, he is the ultimate fixer for Donald Trump. He is a man without any ethics, any morals. He was Trump's defense lawyer against so many of those cases. He lost the quiet money case with the porn star Stormy Daniels. He was the one that represented Trump and lost that one. He represented Trump on many of those cases against him, lost all of them. And he's a crazed loyalist. He's also said that he just had an announcement when he took over the DOJ that Trump is the only person that's actually stood up to Epstein and held him accountable, which of course is an absolute lie. The one statement that Trump made against Epstein was after he was already in jail, but it had nothing to do with the pedophilia. It had all to do with Trump stole a property from Epstein. Epstein wanted Trump's opinion on repositioning the pool so that he could flip a piece of property for a lot of money. He took Trump to it, and Trump went to the seller. Said I'd pay you $5 million more than whatever my buddy had offered. Took it out from underneath him and sold it for almost $100 million profit. Flipped it, and when Epstein said, "Well, I'm going to expose you for the idiot you are," that's when Trump turned against Epstein. It wasn't until that point. Otherwise, they were best friends forever, 15 years of being BFF. So I think it's likely that Todd Blanche is going to do what Bondi wouldn't do. I think he is going to bury the most incriminating pedophile crimes of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump doesn't need the war distraction at this moment because he has his top fixer now head of the Department of Justice, a man who has a singular loyalty. And that is to Satan right there, Donald Trump. So those are my 15 reasons. You can pick any of them or all of them. You might even be able to add to them, but I think that it's a mix of most of them. This was a rat trapped in a corner. So now what? No matter how rotten the terms of surrender, the fact is that the U.S. cannot redeploy. The military is spent. The officers and the troops are mutinous. There is no support for this war at home or abroad. There's no sanction for it. There's no way to prevail in this war. So now that he has this 2-week respite, I don't care how bad that deal is, he can't go back.
Yeah.
Literally, he cannot go back. 2 weeks might as well be forever. So then the images of what the U.S. has done to Iran, along with the damage caused to U.S. bases and to Arab states, it's going to have the same effect on the United States that destroying Gaza had on Israel. The petrodollar system is dead, and so is the U.S. economy. And there's only one way to postpone the collapse. It's, die today or die tomorrow. There's one way that you can postpone the collapse by maybe a year. And that is you'd have to bribe Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, and or Bahrain, or all of them. And you're not going to bribe them with money. You aren't going to bribe them with promises of protection because you failed. There's only one thing you can give those countries that would cause them to be back endeared to their people for the after the crime of protecting and aiding and abetting the great Satan in the United States. There's only one thing you can give them: Israel.
Yeah.
And so the United States is going to give the Gulf Arab countries Israel. And we're going to revisit Neville Chamberlain's Peace in Our Time, where Neville Chamberlain gave the high ground of Czechoslovakia, student land, what wasn't his to give, to appease the Nazis, and all it did was inspire them around Hitler. And the same thing's true. You give a Islamic State carved out of the heart of Israel to Muslims, and they will use it to make Israel defenseless, and it will be the central thrust of Alaska Flood 2.0, which will take place just over a year from now. And by eliminating the U.S. from the Middle East, and particular Iraq, what Iran now has is the ability to move 2 million men into Israel. And that's that final war. The final war that Yahweh talks about, it's millions of of terrorists, and both an army and militants. And it comes from a mountainous nation that is at least one border removed from Israel. So it can't be any one of its neighbors. It's one border removed, at least, from Israel. And that it is a mountainous nation. And it's a nation that can marshal upwards of 2 million troops, and the Iranians can do it in a heartbeat. And then the prophet even speaks of how they will avoid being destroyed en route, because that's the key thing today, is you can't mobilize troops in any massive assemblage, because drones will take them out. And the prophet said this is how they've avoided being annihilated as they move en masse 2 million men into Israel. But that's that last war, and this now sets it up. So Israel and the United States going to war against Iran, put Iran in the position to destroy Israel. And it's a battle that is so vicious that Israel can't stop it on their own. The only way that it can be stopped is for God to intervene. So the petrodollar system is now on fumes. The U.S. has lost yet another war after Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and now Iran. NATO is essentially over. The Iranian proxy war is lost. The Middle East is abandoned. And Israel is isolated and demonized. Recession is imminent. And fiat currencies are trash. That's what you did, pal.
Yeah. I think I talked about it in the yadayah.com and in our chat, was that what we're witnessing is the death of an empire, yes. Currency manipulation, all of those things that go along with, the Spanish, the British, and all empires before that's how they fall. The Romans. Yeah.
Right. They all felt the same way, and they became exceedingly belligerent, trying to defend their financial empire and their control of other people. It's a really ugly death that the British Empire fell. Really ugly death, and so many people paid such a dear price for the corruption of Britain. And the same thing, was never a more ruthless empire, nor died more horrifically in terms of the damage it did to the world than the Roman Empire. And the Germans played the same game too. They went broke and borrowing too much and inflating their currency and ruining their currency. It's been played out many times before, and no one's ever beat this. There is no way to beat it. Right. The United States has only two options. One is default, which is immediate recognition that we're not going to pay back any of our debt. We can't pay back our debt. And because we can't live within our means, we couldn't even finance the United States for a year. It's over. The second is that you create the illusion of solvency by creating the illusion of money, and that you pay your bills by conceiving money out of nothing, which simply devalues your existing currency, and you lose control over that process. You can hide it for a while. The U.S. has been good at hiding it because of the petrodollar, but without the petrodollar, there's no way to hide it. And so it's fast death or slow death, but either way, you die. And America can't survive this even out 5 years.
And this was once again you're at calculation. You're at the point of what comes after. I mean, socialism doesn't fix this. A bigger government doesn't come in and fix. Now everyone has UBI and cradle to grave healthcare, and that doesn't fix this currency issue.
No, it makes Social Security and Medicare and socialized medicine and Marxism as an economic system. All of those things exacerbate this current problem. They don't fix it. It's part of the reason why Trump was elected and remains in power, is that the opposition to him are so out of sync with reality and normal people. The core of the Democratic Party is Marxist. The core of the party is far more Marxist than even the leaders of the party. And yet the only people that could actually win a primary in the Democratic Party have to be as Marxist as the run-of-the-mill Democrat. And America's not going to accept a Marxist. And if your choice is the devil or a Marxist, the swing vote's not going to go in favor of the Marxists. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. So Democrats just don't know how to win. They can't. Right. They cannot come to the middle. They can't. They don't understand economics. They don't understand business. They don't give a crap about it. And it's a terrible problem. And of course, at the same time, you have two generations of Westerners, particularly in America, that have been indoctrinated beyond the capacity to think anymore. They are literally rendered incapable of rational thought. They're so poorly educated and so indoctrinated. They don't know, for example, that fascism and Marxism are the same thing. They do not know the difference between what happened in capitalist Western Europe versus Marxist Eastern Europe. They've never made the comparison between North and South Korea. They don't know that communism is a miserable and failed system. So
for everybody,
they just they just think that, well, there's people that have a lot of money and I don't have a lot of money, and so if we have communism, I'll get their money. But they don't want to work. They don't want to make a contribution. And so communism, they think, will enable them to steal it. But all communism does, it brings everybody down to the same level of poverty. And then you've got AI that is just making a mess out of everything, so that the majority of the posts that you see on social media are fake. Right. And if social media has now lost its credibility, how are people going to know what's going on in the world? Because the mainstream media is so bought in to and controlled by the tech oligarchs that, look at Ellison and his control of TikTok, and then CNN, and then CBS, and turning them all into Fox satellites. Right? No, we're destroyed. And you look at Elon Musk; he's created a literal cesspool of racism and anti-Semitism on X, where the majority of the posts are total rubbish. Facebook's just gone to hell. I mean, there's nothing of Facebook that has any value anymore. They've all turned it over to AI that can't think, it isn't moral, and ruined their platforms with AI posts. So AI is the cause of the misinformation, and AI is trying to regulate something that it doesn't know how to regulate.
And it's the distribution method of the AI. The AI is continuing to redistribute itself. That's not regulating it; it's redistributing it.
That is correct. It's metastasizing.
I go back to Yermiyah and confirmation bias. Yermiyah talks about mainly he's talking about the rabbis, but how everyone thinks that tomorrow will be just like things were yesterday.
Yes.
The
normalcy syndrome.
That is not what we're in store.
What COVID-19 should have taught you is that the normalcy syndrome is crazy, because in a matter of a month, people worldwide were willing to give up their freedoms and their livelihoods over fear porn.
Yeah.
And COVID-19 didn't turn out to be any more lethal than a normal bad flu year with the deaths of 1 in 1,000 people. And everything we were told about it turned out to be a lie. And yet they totally controlled and bankrupt countries, deprive people of their freedoms, even their will to be free, or their desire to work.
I don't know if you recall back in COVID time. Do you remember the 2 more weeks meme? We're only going to have to wear masks for 2 more weeks. Only 2 more weeks, 2 more, and then this crap comes out yesterday with we're just going to give Iran 2 more weeks, and I was like, oh, that's it. We're in the 15 minutes of air travel now. Yes, folks, we're just going to wait on the plane. We'll be taking off in 15 more minutes.
I remember
the time frame that we can think of.
When COVID first hit, the first thing that I did was I presented the source of COVID, and said had nothing to do with the wet market in China. This was a created pathogen. It was the triggers, which is the attachment point, was specifically elevated to make it more pervasive, so that it would spread more effectively and be more effective in a human host. And it was a blend of HIV, Ebola, and the SARS virus, deliberately brought together with research papers written in it in the Virology Institute in Wuhan and funded by the United States. And Fauci was the signatory on the last funding round for it. They had a lab accident. It got out. And at that moment, the Chinese government knew exactly how to treat this. They knew what it was. And they lied about it and made certain that the people who were infected went around the world and spread it to the world. And so that brought the world to its knees. Devastating blow. I recognize that. I published it. We were called crazy at the time. And now it's universally known. That's what happened. And so we were called ignorant and liars and the like, and turned out to be exactly true. Then I also said I've studied the initial data, and the lockdowns are counterproductive. That the data says that if you study the countries and the states that did severe lockdowns versus no lockdown, the lockdown is the wrong approach. I also said that taking infected people and putting them in hospitals where sick people are is devastating. It's going to spike the death rate, and that we're going to create the illusion of a horrible virus because of the fact that people will die of comorbidities, and we're going to assign them all to COVID when it's diabetes or vascular disease or heart issues. There's any number of problems that were actually the cause of death. The person would have died of any one of these previously. And we actually showed that upwards of 90% of the deaths attributed to COVID had at least 5 comorbidities.
5, not 1.
5.
Yeah, it was. You weren't healthy anyway.
All of the lies that we were told, and the last thing, if you want to do it correctly, you do what the Torah says. You take the infected people and you put them outside of the community. You build care centers for them outside the community so that they don't infect the rest of the community with the contagious disease. And Torah goes through, tells you about wearing face masks, but the people that wear the face mask are the people that are sick, not the people that are healthy. And that you send them out of the community, and then you have an entire sterilization process. The Torah talks about the sterilization process of every ounce of clothing or tents or anything that would be around them, and then you burn it all. And we did just the opposite. Rather than isolating the people that had COVID, we brought them into the hospitals, and they killed a bunch of people. We just did everything wrong. And when you have a government that will impose such tyranny on its people, doing everything that's wrong, you ought to recognize the normalcy syndrome is wrong. You're going to go one day to the next over these next 7 years, and everything that you have relied upon is going to crater. Your currency, your savings, the value of your home, energy, electricity, gas for your car, everything's going to crater. Food, you name it.
Constant state of shock
for it, because that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only actually one way out. That happens to be Yahweh.
Yeah. Yadayah.com. Start reading.
Go to yadayah.com. I'd recommend, highly recommend reading the books at yadayah.com and joining us on the Shabua harvest. Although I think it's probably late for most people, because you'd have to come up to speed with what we know and actually make a contribution to prove your value to Yahweh before he's going to empower you over eternity. So I think at the very best, you can read, learn what's happening, and at least you're going to be in a position to capitalize on the true harvest 7 years from now. And that's really all we can do. So, boy, do we have 2 dogs. You probably hear them in the background. No, they're playing with each other, but Asher is and Kara are the 2 Wookiees just looking at him and saying, "Oh my God, am I really part of this pack?" Yeah, come on. But the two girls have great time together playing. So anyway, I think we have pretty much said all that can be said on this. We'll see how it plays out over the next 2 weeks, but Trump's going to claim that he won, and this was Iran's surrender, and the opposite is true. And there'll be some MAGAs that still believe that he's telling the truth and not a perpetual liar. But, those MAGAs are also Twistians, and Twistians are prone to believe some of the most outrageous lies in the history of mankind, like their God is a man,
right,
and that men killed their God, and that bodily resurrection is somehow unique to them when the Egyptians were doing the mummy thing and most of the world was for thousands of years, that it's purely pagan. But
and that it's a good thing that there's some good thing about having another
it's
one.
A positive. I tell you what, when the only thing that's good about getting rid of dying is you get rid of these physical bodies, and if you're with Yahweh, you get surrounded by light and energy, and the empowerment is infinity 7 times over. So it's just astonishing to me that anyone is a Muslim or a Christian or anyone is overtly political, because there's no value to any of this. So that's would be our parting shot, is that we are not political. We are most certainly are not liberals. So our criticism of Donald Trump has nothing to do with politics. We're apolitical, and we're anti-religious because we know better, and because we work for Yahweh, who is apolitical and anti-religious. And so we carry that torch, and I would strongly recommend that you do so too if you're listening to this, because your politicians do nothing but lie to you. They prey upon you, and that religions are all false. They do not lead to God. They lead away from him. And God hates religion with a passion. And if you want to challenge any of that, you just go right ahead and read the books at yadayah.com. They're all free. Not trying to sell you anything. But I can tell you that no one's ever been able to disprove them, and no one ever will. So the evidence is irrefutable. So thank you, Kevin. That was a lot to cover. A little over 2.5 hours of here we are. And where we are is a very unfortunate position, not just for Donald Trump, not just for the United States, not just for Israel, and for the world. God said that we're less than 2 months away from entering the time of trouble. And he said that it's going to be worse than anything that's ever happened in human history, beyond your imagination, how bad this next 7 years is going to be. And who thought we'd be in a position where we could talk about something as disastrous as what we're witnessing playing out right before our eyes? As I say, the prophets have never been wrong. And this is what they have foretold. All right. Rich, thank you for producing this spur of the moment, and I will look forward to being with you later today. We're going to do a early evening show. We'll end with a bonfire, because tonight is the last evening of Chag Matzah. It's the Shabbaton, very special day. We treat it as a Shabbat, and so we're going to light a fire and enjoy that tonight, probably at the end of a program on Yahweh's name. And so we hope you join us later this evening. Good night. Good day.